More than 822 staff will be made redundant as a result of the collapse of Carillion, the construction firm that dramatically collapsed last month. Last week, the official receiver announced 377 staff would be made redundant, and in a further blow to workers, it has announced today a further 452 jobs will be lost. The huge company went into compulsory liquidation on January 15 with debts of up to £5 billion, including a black hole in its pension fund of around £2.6 billion. The official receiver, which is now in control of the company, has promised some 919 positions will be safeguarded, with another 100 positions added to this today. Carillion is one of the UK's largest construction companies, employing around 43,000 staff globally, including 20,000 in Britain. The staff whose jobs had been saved are involved in infrastructure projects, central and local government, and construction contracts, and are transferring to new employers who have taken on this work. Those said to be made redundant are understood to be back-office employees such as sales staff who try to win new contracts for the company. Of the 377 who lost their jobs last week, 253 worked in public sector roles while 124 worked on private sector contracts. The official receiver said 29 workers are being made redundant in Scotland, 19 in Wales, with the remaining 329 across the rest of the UK. A further 452 staff in private and public sector contracts and back-office roles have been made redundant today, across areas including London, Newcastle, Southampton and Thameside. Those who have lost their jobs will be entitled to make a claim for statutory redundancy payments. July 10, 2017, Carillion Chief Executive Richard Helson quits as Carillion issues profit warning and pulls out of 3 construction markets in the Middle East. July 11, 2017, Carillion tumbled by 30% as questions were raised about the future of the company. July 17, 2017, Carillion wins a £1.4 billion contract to help build Britain's high-speed 2 railway as part of a consortium. July 18, 2017, a Carillion joint venture wins 2 Ministry of Defence contracts worth £158 million for catering and leisure services. September 11, 2017, Carillion's finance chief Zafar Khan leaves as the firm announces major shakeup of its top team. September 29, 2017, Carillion issues a second profit warning, sparking fresh fears over its future. November 6, 2017, state-owned Network Rail gave Carillion a contract worth around £320 million to upgrade track on the London to Corby line. November 17, 2017, shares fall another 34% after Carillion issues its third profit warning. January 3, 2018, the Financial Conduct Authority said it is investigating Carillion's statements to the market in the 7 months before it issued its first profit warning. January 15, 2018, Carillion announces it has gone into liquidation, sparking concerns over the 450 public sector contracts it has and the 20,000 people it employs. A spokesman for the official receiver said, as part of the ongoing liquidation of the Carillion Group, I am pleased we have been able to safeguard the jobs of 919 employees. Most staff are transferring on existing or similar terms, and I will continue to facilitate this wherever possible as we work to find new providers for Carillion's other contracts. Despite best efforts, it has not been possible to secure the jobs of 377 staff who will be made redundant. I am expecting many employees working on other Carillion contracts to transfer in the coming weeks, and we are continuing to keep the workforce updated as these arrangements are finalized. The Wolverhampton-based company also offers many outsourcing services for the public sector, with contracts to provide school dinners, maintain and operate buildings and estates, security and housekeeping, as well as cleaning and catering at NHS hospitals. Carillion saw its shares price plunge more than 70% in the past 6 months after making a string of profit warnings and breaching its financial covenants. It was also struggling under a pension deficit of around £600 million. The spokesman added, "I recognize that this will be a worrying time for all those affected, their families and local communities. I would like to thank all staff for their professionalism throughout the liquidation." The Construction Industry Training Board (CITB) said yesterday that 553 of the 1,400 apprentices affected by the crisis had been offered a role with another employer, a government spokesperson said. Understandably, this will be a very difficult time for those who have been made redundant and their families. As with almost all insolvencies, there are unfortunately a number of redundancies, and government stands ready to support those affected through Job Center Plus Rapid Response Service. We continue to work hard to minimize the impacts of insolvency and ensure that public services run safely. This comes amid an official investigation launched into top bosses at Carillion who changed the rules so they could keep their bonuses, as the firm collapsed and put 23,000 jobs at risk. Carillion is dependent on large contracts, some of which have significantly underperformed. In 2017, the value of its contracts were reduced by £845 million, leading to debt soaring to £900 million. In December, the firm struck an agreement with its lenders to defer a crucial financial covenant test, but failed this past week to secure £300 million from banks. Carillion is believed to have asked the government to provide funds of £20 million to help it secure more money from the banks and avoid going into liquidation, but ministers were unwilling to offer financial support. Neil Wilson, senior market analyst at Capital, said this was a case of bad management and pitching for contracts at any price, but the government and banks could, or maybe should, have done more. There are questions as to whether this was an issue of perception, as funding would look like the government was bailing out yet another private firm. It is a particularly sensitive topic in the wake of the financial crisis when the UK bailed out major lenders including Royal Bank of Scotland (RBS) and Lloyds. The watering down of so-called clawback conditions, which would have allowed investors to demand the return of bonuses in the event of company failure, came in 2016 when the firm was already showing signs of financial stress. The bonus changes, as well as bumper pay packets for senior staff, were last month branded highly inappropriate by leading business lobby group the Institute of Directors. Richard Howson, who headed the company from 2012 until July 2017, pocketed £1.5 million in 2016, including a £122,612 cash bonus and £231,000 in pension contributions. As part of his departure deal, Carillion agreed to continue paying him a £660,000 salary and £28,000 in benefits until October, even though he left the company for good last autumn after a brief spell as an advisor. Former finance chief Zafar Khan, who left Carillion in September, will receive £425,000 in base salary for 12 months. And interim chief executive Keith Cochrane will be paid a £750,000 salary until July. Despite leaving the company in February, he was not at the company when the rules governing bonuses were relaxed. The collapse of Carillion on January 15 threw 450 construction projects across the public sector into chaos, from the running of prisons to the building of HS2. Jobs in the UK and overseas are at risk after the firm ran out of time to find a way to restructure its £1.5 billion debt burden following failed talks last month. Carillion introduced tougher rules that protect bonuses paid to bosses when the firm was already under financial strain. The company changed the wording of its pay policy to make it harder for investors to claw back bonuses paid to executives in the event it ran into financial difficulty. In recent weeks, Carillion has been under pressure from investors to recoup some of the millions of pounds in bonuses paid to former Chief Executive Richard Howson and ex-Finance Chief Richard Adam when they were in charge. A probe by the Mail has found that previously bosses could have been forced to hand back their annual bonus and share awards in circumstances of corporate failure. But in the group's 2016 annual report, this footing was tightened. It says deferred bonuses may be reduced in circumstances of corporate failure, but goes on to say the so-called malice and clawback provisions can be applied in two circumstances: if results have been misstated or the participant is guilty of gross misconduct. At this time, hedge funds had already realized there were problems at Carillion, with one London firm borrowing more and more of Carillion stock to take out bets against its fortunes. A Carillion manager who requested anonymity told City AM the hedge fund interest was a product of leaks from senior meetings. Roger Barker, head of corporate governance at the Institute of Directors, said the relaxation of clawback conditions for executive bonuses in 2016 appears in retrospect to be highly inappropriate. It does no good to the reputation of UK business when top managers appear to benefit in spite of the collapse of the organizations that they are responsible for. Carillion is known for having worked on the Royal Opera House, the Channel Tunnel, Tate Modern, and the famous Donut Building of the UK's Government Communications Headquarters (GCHQ) in Cheltenham. Current projects Carillion is working on include the Aberdeen Bypass and the Angel Gardens in Manchester, which Carillion were offered £745 million and £75 million to build respectively. Internationally, Carillion has been responsible for Oman's Parliament, the Malias Alvido Dam in Portugal, and the Yes Marina Hotel in Abu Dhabi as recently as January 2nd. The firm celebrated the completion of what it described as another successful project at Edinburgh Waverley Station. Philip Green, who became chairman of Carillion in May 2014, advised David Cameron on corporate responsibility under the coalition government. He was appointed in 2011, the same year. He joined the board at Carillion, but axed by Theresa May when she carried out a review of Mr. Cameron's appointments in December 2016. The businessman, who should not be confused with the Philip Green who owned BHS, was educated at the University of Swansea before completing an MBA at the London Business School. He was CEO of United Utilities Group plc from 2006 to 2011. His earlier corporate experience includes serving as CEO of Royal P&O Nederland, a director and chief operating officer at Reuters Group plc and chief operating officer at DHL for Europe and Africa. Mr. Green is also a non-executive chairman of Logiker, a European logistics real estate business owned by a New York-based investment management firm. Here is how construction giant Carillion announced it had gone bust. Further to the announcement made on January 12, 2018. Carillion continued to engage with its key financial and other stakeholders, including Her Majesty's Government (HMG), over the course of the weekend regarding options to reduce debt and strengthen the group's balance sheet. As part of this engagement, Carillion also asked those stakeholders for limited short-term financial support to enable it to continue to trade whilst longer-term engagement continued. Despite considerable efforts, those discussions have not been successful, and the board of Carillion has therefore concluded that it had no choice but to take steps to enter into compulsory liquidation with immediate effect. An application was made to the High Court for a compulsory liquidation of Carillion before opening of business today, and an order has been granted to appoint the official receiver as the liquidator of Carillion. We anticipate that the official receiver will make an application to the High Court for PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP to be appointed as special managers to act on behalf of the official receiver, and we further anticipate that an order will be granted to that effect. Philip Green, chairman of Carillion, said, "This is a very sad day for Carillion, for our colleagues, suppliers and customers that we have been proud to serve over many years. Over recent months, huge efforts have been made to restructure Carillion to deliver its sustainable future, and the board is very grateful for the huge efforts made by Chief Executive Keith Cochran, our executive team, and many others who have worked tirelessly over this period. In recent days, however, we have been unable to secure the funding to support our business plan, and it is therefore with the deepest regret that we have arrived at this decision. We understand that HM government will be providing the necessary funding required by the official receiver to maintain the public services carried on by Carillion staff, subcontractors and suppliers.
Where the freaks at?